The Roman Empire was built on order, upheld by law, and enforced by fear. To govern an empire stretching across 3 continents, Rome didn't just need armies, it needed obedience. And obedience was bought with pain. In Rome, punishment wasn't hidden, it wasn't discreet, it was public, loud, symbolic, a performance of power. From soldiers to slaves, emperors to senators, no one was beyond punishment. And the crueler the sentence, the more powerful the message. These are the 10 most cruel punishments ever used in ancient Rome. Some are so brutal, you'll wish they were myths, but they weren't. Number 1, decimation, killing your own men. When a Roman legion showed cowardice or disobedience, the punishment was not just harsh, it was mathematical. Decimation. From the Latin decimus, meaning 1 in 10. Here's how it worked. The entire unit was lined up. Soldiers drew lots. Every 10th man, guilty or not, was beaten to death by the other 9. No exceptions, no appeals. Imagine watching your friend draw the short straw. Now imagine having to bludgeon him to death with your bare hands. Roman sandals stood in pools of blood that day, not from enemy battles, but from their own brothers. And those who survived returned to battle, dramatized, terrified, loyal. Decimation was rare, but when it happened, legions never forgot. Number 2, burning alive in the arena. The arena wasn't just for entertainment, it was a message board. Enemies of the state, escaped slaves, and heretics were burned alive, slowly, in front of tens of thousands. But this wasn't chaos, it was choreographed. The condemned were often stripped, shackled, and chained to poles, then doused with pitch or oil. Sometimes they were dressed in theatrical costumes, made to resemble mythical criminals. Flames weren't lit until the games reached a climax. Crowds roared, the emperor watched. Rome spoke, and sandals of spectators crunched ash beneath them as they laughed. Number 3, penalties, death by drowning, in a sack with animals. This one barely sounds real. If you killed your father, one of Rome's greatest taboos, you didn't just die. You were subjected to penalties, the punishment of the sack. You'd be sewn into a leather sack, along with a dog, a monkey, a snake, and a rooster. Then the sack was thrown into the river. Why those animals? No one knows for sure. But the result? A screaming, clawing, biting storm of terror. Before you even drowned, you were ripped apart by confused beasts. Rome didn't just want you dead. It wanted you forgotten by the earth. Number 4, crucifixion, the empire's favorite horror show. Yes, we know this one, but what many forget is just how brutal crucifixion really was. Used not for Roman citizens, but for slaves, traitors, and rebels. Crucifixion was a warning nailed in wood. Victims were beaten with rods or whips, sometimes until bones showed. Forced to carry their own cross, stripped naked, hung in the scorching sun for days. Death came slowly, from blood loss, asphyxiation, dehydration, or exposure. Sometimes birds came before death. It was common for sandals walking by to crush bones that had fallen from the bodies. Even in death, they were desecrated.
Number 5, death by elephant. In the eastern parts of the empire, particularly under Eastern client kings, executions weren't just symbolic. They were spectacles of power. And nothing symbolized imperial might like an elephant. Criminals were brought into the arena, sometimes bound, sometimes blindfolded, and then an armored elephant crushed them beneath his feet. But that's not all. Some accounts say the elephant was trained to drag the victim, slice them with tusks, or even execute them on command, a kind of executioner beast. A crowd watched, sandals shuffling, as life was stomped into the sand. Number 6, gouging, branding, and mutilation. Some punishments weren't about death, but marking. Runaway slaves could be branded on the face with the letter F for fugitivus, have an ear cut off, or even have their eyes gouged out. In some cases, the mutilation was paired with forced labor, a permanent reminder of shame. They walked the streets marked, mocked, broken. Sandals didn't just walk in victory. They walked past suffering, untouched, because in Rome, pain wasn't always final. Sometimes it was forever. Number 7, damnatio ad bestias, death by wild beasts. In the Colosseum, some criminals weren't even given a chance. They were simply thrown into the arena, naked or chained, and released into the jaws of lions, leopards, bears, or bulls. This was known as damnatio ad bestias, condemnation to the beasts. It was quick, sometimes, but not always. Sometimes the beasts were starved for days. Sometimes they played, tore a leg first, then waited. Sometimes they refused to kill at all. Crowd grew restless. More beasts were sent in. The blood pooled. The sand turned red, and sandals walked on. Number 8, beheading after torture. For Roman citizens, beheading was the merciful execution, but only if you were noble. For others, torture came first. Racks to stretch the body, hooks to tear flesh, hot irons to burn the skin, and sometimes blinding with fire. Then finally, the sword. But even that wasn't clean. The first swing didn't always work. Executioners weren't always skilled. Heads were sometimes hacked off in stages. Each blow an echo, each drop a message. Walling alive. This one was reserved for Vestal virgins, women sworn to chastity under Rome's sacred cults. If a Vestal broke her vow, she couldn't be executed by bloodshed. That would anger the gods. So instead, she was walled alive. A chamber was prepared underground. The woman was given a loaf of bread, a candle, a flask of water. She was led in, the walls were sealed, and then darkness. No screams, no spectacle, just silence. Rome didn't kill her, it simply buried her. Number 10, execution by whipping, then thrown from the Tarpeian Rock. The Tarpeian Rock stood on the Capitoline Hill, overlooking the Roman Forum. For traitors, it was the final view. Prisoners were stripped, whipped until raw, then dragged to the edge and thrown headfirst onto the stones below. It wasn't always fatal. Some writhed, broken, some bled out slowly. Crowds gathered below to watch. The fall wasn't just death, it was humiliation. To be thrown from the rock was to be erased, to have your name spoken no more. Rome's polity wasn't chaos, it was law. Rome's punishments weren't invented by madmen. They were passed by Senate, approved by emperors, enforced by law. They weren't just executions, they were performances, because Rome didn't just want obedience, it wanted submission. And the sandals that walked away from these punishments walked straighter, more loyal, more afraid.
If this episode opened your eyes to the true face of Roman justice, subscribe to Echoes of Conflict, where we expose the darkest truths from history's blood-soaked archives. Comment below which punishment shocked you the most. Until next time, walk carefully. The ground beneath us remembers.